Hi, it's Tom here from Running Physio. Today I wanted to talk to you about great toe pain, in particular about hallux rigidus and the pain that we can often get from osteoarthritis in that great toe. I wanted to talk to you about this today because I had a patient recently, a runner, who was a bit upset, a bit surprised because she had some great toe pain and she'd seen a consultant who had, scanned it and diagnosed osteoarthritis and said, like, that's it, you've got to stop running. And this is often the kind of bleak picture that people do get told, unnecessarily so in many cases. And so she came to me a bit upset about it, saying, I'm feeling I'm going to have to stop my running and things, which is a big part of my life. I really enjoy it. And I'm really hoping there are other solutions for it. And there actually are. There's quite a few simple things you can try. And I really don't think it's our choice as health professionals to tell people to stop running. I think we want to see what we can to provide solutions first, and then let them make choices about whether they want to continue their sport or not. And actually, there are some simple solutions I'd like to talk to you about now that you can use for great toe pain that can often be really effective and can keep runners running. Now, if you'd like to find out more about running injuries, we've got a great selection of free webinars that I've linked to for you in the title, covering Achilles tendinopathy, lateral hip pain, and lower back pain in athletes. So do check those out as well. So let's talk about this great toe pain. The first thing that will come to my mind when someone's presenting to me with this is, why does it hurt now? Why is it an issue for them at the moment? So I think an important first step is to try and identify what, if anything, has changed. Has their training changed? Are they doing some more speed work or more hill work? Are they now, as a result, running more up on their toes and therefore placing more stress through that joint? Have they actually made any technique changes? Perhaps they've decided to try and switch to forefoot, or perhaps a coach or someone has said to switch to forefoot. Again, we're going to expect to see more load through that great toe, particularly at foot strike if they have switched to a more forefoot strike. Are there changes around footwear? So have they gone to perhaps a more minimalist shoe, perhaps, or barefoot, which means they're getting less support from the shoe and therefore more movement in the great toe, and perhaps that's contributing to their pain. Is it something outside of their sport? Have they taken up other exercises or activities that are requiring them to have more range than they've got available to them at the moment? Could that be a piece of the puzzle? So that first step, we've got to find out, why is it hurting now? What are the underlying causes here? Then we can look to address those with appropriate load management to try and reduce the stress down to a more manageable level. I think sometimes as well we see the toes as slightly different from other joints in the body, but I think we can approach them in a similar way. So I would, like other joints in the body, try to restore range of movement. If we can, see if we can bring back some extension in that great toe, because that's often the problem, movement, that lack of extension. So can we teach them some simple exercises, some self-mobs to try and restore a little bit of extension range through that toe and help them then with function? Can we try also to assess and address strength, generally through the foot and ankle, looking at the toe flexors, ankle inverters and everters, and calf? Because generally, I think the stronger the foot and the ankle is, the better it can cope with the stresses and strains of running. Could we look at their movement control too? Are they moving in a way during balancing activities that is loading that great toe more? And can we help them to adjust that to make it more comfortable? Now, this isn't an area where there's lots of research that I've been able to find specific to great toe pain in runners. So a bit of it is trial and error, working out what seems to help their symptoms and what can keep them doing the sport that they love. So we try to identify the causes, we try to improve range of movement and strength. We want to also, as part of this, try to adapt the loading and use load management. So that might be around trying to reduce some of those provocative types of training patterns, or reduce other exercises that are painful, or wherever possible, adapt rather than avoid. So this lady with her great toe pain, for example, she was doing lunges as part of her strength and conditioning exercises, and they were painful when her leg with a painful foot was at the back, because that was requiring a lot of great toe extension. So we adapted it a little bit like this. So we use some pillows under the shin to take some pressure off the great toe during the lunge activity. So there's ways you can do it. You can do similar things with planks and other activities just to see if you can reduce the range of movement required in these provocative exercises, with the aim in time, if you can restore the range, to perhaps get them back into those normal activities again. So we look at adapting the loading. If they've switched to forefoot recently, we might get them back to the normal foot strike. Potentially, we try and keep them going with their running wherever we can, but at a manageable level that doesn't cause a lasting flare-up or a big increase in swelling and discomfort in that region. We also want to think about footwear, and in particular with foot and ankle pathologies, I do think footwear plays a larger role. And there's three things I'd probably be looking at here. Firstly, I'd like to have quite a firm sole to the shoe, ideally a firm forefoot region. Now, if we look at this old pair of shoes I've got here, these are pretty old, so they haven't really got much rigidity there through that forefoot region. So that might mean if I'm running in those, I'm going to require more range of movement through that great toe. And if it's stiff and uncomfortable to do that, that's probably going to add to symptoms. So have a look at the shoe. Are they a bit old? Have they got a lot of motion through that forefoot region? Have they just brought in a new pair of shoes like a Nike Free or something like that that has loads of flexibility in that region? And if they have they got a shoe with a firmer sole, particularly a firmer forefoot region that they can use? Now, as I said, there's not a lot of research about this, but it's around trial and error. So you can test them and see perhaps that, if a lunge like the patient I was working with was provocative, let's see if that's any less painful in this shoe with a firmer sole. Let's see if running's any less painful in this shoe. So it becomes a little bit around looking at ways of individually testing symptoms, trying out different forms of footwear and different techniques to see if you can help. Also have a think about the right fit for the shoe. A very narrow forefoot can sometimes place greater stress on the medial side of the great toe, and that can be uncomfortable, particularly if that region's become somewhat swollen and sensitive. So we might want to have a look at that. And there may be some solutions around lacing. So if we bring this bad boy back in, what I've tried to do here to demonstrate to you is keep the laces quite tight at the top of the shoe for stability, but at the bottom around this kind of toe region, they're quite loose to try and keep as much space there as possible for that forefoot. So have a think about whether you can change some of the lacing options as well to make it more comfortable. And then final thought on shoes is if they're into perhaps looking for a new shoe, a rocker shoe design may well be a good option to consider. And there are a number of different ones out there. I believe there's some of the Hokas, for example, that have more of a rocker shoe design, which allows you to get away with smaller amounts of range at the great toe. So quite a few different options here that we can consider in terms of footwear. And then finally, on our short list of simple solutions today, think about orthoses as an option too. And personally, I like to team up with podiatrists with this because I know really they've got the expert knowledge in this region to get something that's going to work for each individual. But you might try something, for example, like a Morton's extension orthoses, which, as I understand it, helps to create kind of a stiffer insole underneath the great toe to minimize great toe movement and load. So that might be something that you would consider to see if that can help as part of your overall treatment. So a few simple solutions there. Just to recap, try and work out the cause and why it's hurting now. See if you can restore range of movement and strength. Try to adapt loading in terms of the training they're doing, but also exercises and other things that might be provocative. Think about footwear and be guided by what seems to be most comfortable for that toe. So it might take a bit of trial and error. And then finally, think about orthoses and team up with a podiatrist potentially to get those made to suit the individual. And to finish off with this, I'd just like to tell you, a little bit of a case with someone who shows that you can get away with having very stiff and restricted great toes. They needn't mean that you can't run, as this particular consultant has said. So we were working with a runner who actually had both his great toes fused, but so he's got no range of movement available to him at all. But he's now run 100 marathons and continues to run distances with virtually no great toe movement at all. So, and that's a bilateral thing for him. So I think there's positivity that can come from this from our runners. Like any injury, it doesn't have to mean the end of the sport that they love. We've got to look for solutions, look for ways to try and keep them doing their sport at a manageable level. And in many cases, we can do that quite successfully. Okay, thanks everyone for listening today. I'd love to hear from you on this. It's certainly an area where we don't have a lot of great research to guide us. So what ideas do you have? Do you have some really good solutions for great toe pain? Are there any particular shoes that you would recommend or exercises that you'd like? I'd love to hear from you in the comments, so do let us know. As I said, we've got the link as well to those free webinars. Do check those out, and I will look forward to reading your comments and things afterwards. Okay, thanks again for listening. Bye for now.